Hello, and welcome to the Comic Dissection Podcast, a podcast in which we... dissect comics. As always, I am joined by my cruel and heartless co-host, Cecilia Rose.
That's right.
Also today, we have a super special guest, dear friend of the pod, Gorship, master of wrestling, master of puppets, and for today's very special episode, Master of Sandman. Yeah.
Thank you. You guys flatter me too much. Well, Dean
I was
does.
going to say dear.
Yeah. You would never
Dear's
flatter me.
pushing
It won't last long.
That sounds about right.
Reno's got 2 minutes of flattery and 58 minutes of insult. So we're past the flattery phase. And today, very special episode because Neil Gaiman,
Who is a god?
graced us with the manna of heaven. That was the Sandman series, which we've been promised for
Over 30 years. 30 years.
Yeah,
30 years.
About 30
he
years.
finally gave us what we all have been wanting.
He was waiting for the perfect time, the perfect cast, the perfect people, and
to make it gayer, apparently. I saw something where
and
he
the
said
perfect
that
gayness.
Yes, he always wanted to make it gayer, which is something I appreciate personally.
I love
Because that is one thing we've always talked about, is that in the original reading that we all took from, it was like, it's gay, but could it be gay?
I always say that.
I mean, to be
Yeah,
fair, the Magical Boy anime that you watch proves that anything that is gayer, you
Look,
will accept wholeheartedly.
Since you've been away, I've dived headfirst into yaoi.
I've seen your Funimation queue. I know.
Yeah, Cecilia's bringing that, as in the world of podcast where the cis white male reigns supreme. It is nice today to have Gorship and of course always Cecilia to give me non-cis white male viewpoints. Well, we get a little Latino, we get a little
Oh, Ale.
what? Yeah,
Gracias, señor.
de nada.
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
Very, very Caucasian
I did not mean
way of
to.
saying it, but it is correct.
De nada, motherfucker. I'm sorry. I'm not here to. I'm not here to steal
Dios
your
mío.
culture. But yes, this is going to be a more laid back episode. We're just going to talk about what we thought of the show, where it does and does not deviate from the comic, good changes versus bad changes, the cast. We're just gonna mostly gush about Neil Gaiman's Sandman for an hour, and
Yes.
How much we love the artwork and the casting.
Oh yes, like I'll start by saying one of the pluses of this show, and I'm going to be more pluses than
It better be the right
minuses.
thing right out the gate.
We'll see.
But you better say the right thing first off. The first and most foremost person you better mention.
Gorship, also a bully. No.
This is why I give him shit.
Well, I mean, and Cecilia, also a bully.
Yes. Game recognizes game.
Yeah, this
play.
is what I do to keep my narcissism in check. I invite people who are just cruel as hell to me. All right, no, the first thing, and Gorship, tell me if I'm correct, that made me super happy was how many times Neil Gaiman and, the directors, producers, cinematographers, whoever, took panels from the comic and perfectly recreated them in the show.
Yes.
Where you could take a panel from the comic, hold it up to the scene in the TV show and be like, that's
Freeze
a fucking
frame.
match.
That is identical.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
That was my biggest thing. And because we've seen so many times with live action, quote unquote, adaptations,
Yeah.
where you're like, oh, this is this story arc, so I'm waiting for this infamous panel that everyone knows that's been printed on millions of t-shirts and posters and, ripped off by Hot Topic and Spencer a million times. But we never actually get it in those TV shows. Like, I had the same thing happen with, like, let's say, Daredevil, when, that was really big on Netflix. There was a couple times like, oh, I remember this story arc, so hopefully they kind of do a pose randomly here to cover this comic cover. Didn't happen. But in The Sandman, several times, just in episode 1, I was like, that is direct from the comic.
Yeah, it's got to be Neil Gaiman's influence because
Well, it's the same thing that happened with Good Omens.
Yes.
There were parts of it that were like, this is exactly the way I saw it in the book.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do think that's something to do with the way Neil
Neil Gaiman is very protective of his stuff, which of course he has every right to be. And I feel like you take something like Umbrella Academy, which I love, big fan,
Thank
huge
you,
fan.
Shouts out Gerard.
Yeah, but if you look at the comic, they are fucking night and day different. And that's okay. Like, I'm fine with that approach. I did not want that for Sandman.
Well, and not everything translates exactly.
And there are variations, for me, which we'll talk about.
I only read like 2 issues of Umbrella Academy when it was first conceived before I even knew anything about Netflix.
I didn't dig the art
Netflix was the reason why I actually got into watching the show and wanted to kind of learn more about the comics.
Yeah.
I still to this day haven't read full entire story arcs, so I don't know what I'm missing in overlap for the show versus comic, you know.
If you would like, after this, I've got the first 2 Umbrella Academy volumes. Gift from Zenitel, shout out. And if you would like to borrow them, you can. For me, it was just I didn't really like the art style.
I feel that, and that's you talked about with me about Hellboy. And like, I love Hellboy's story, even though the art is kind of. I still love Mike Mignola and all that.
I'll be honest. I like the Hellboy art style, but not to tell a story. It's just too undefined. Yeah. It's too ethereal, too dreamlike.
Well, which is funny because Mike Mignola also did stuff for the Sandman, which I was about to say back in the day. But my whole point about that is like, I like the Sandman because in the same endeavor, Neil Gaiman made sure to tell a story that people who were casual fans, just stumbling across the Netflix show, never heard of Sandman in the comic format whatsoever. He made it to where you could watch it seamlessly, and yes, you'll have questions, but those questions get answered very easily.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, where's the other shoe drop? Where's the other shoe drop? Yep. Which I've done before because some shows have gone about it to make it a point where they're like, oh, this show is mostly for like the diehards, and a casual can pick it up, but the diehard will get all the references, all the understanding of little subtle nods, all the future tenses that are about to happen, or foreshadowing. Thankfully, Neil Gaiman was like, all right, how do I blend a new person into a very strong diehard fandom?
Yeah.
And I think this one...
pleasing both audiences.
Yeah, this one really, just off the first episode, did a good job of people who were like, I have no clue what's going on. But, boy howdy, that naked boy dream. What's going on there?
Yeah.
You know, and I'll be honest, I was watching it with Kayla. She said the same thing. She's like, what is he, an alien? Takes off the helm, takes off the cloak. Oh no, it's just a sexy skinny white boy.
We're back to emo dudes.
Very back to a cut jawline who always looks like he's about to cry. And you know what? That's in right now.
Yeah.
It is.
Wait, I was going to say, it's like, alien? Oh no, it's worse. It's the lead singer of The Cure. Oh man.
Speaking of Gerard Way, we're bringing back the trench coats.
But and so with that being said, in episode 1, how did you guys feel about the very start of episode 1 almost being, I want to say almost panel for panel, with this opening sequence of the beginning in, what was it, 1916 they said, the First World War.
Yeah.
So you have Magus.
Yeah.
I always read
Magus, something like Magus.
But it's always the same thing. This is, if you look at it, almost panel for panel.
Even the name of the episode, I think, was the same.
of the Just.
Yeah. A lot of the episodes were named after issues of the comic.
Yeah. Now, if you notice the big difference, though, right at the beginning is, instead of it being the butler who answers, it was Alex, his son. And I didn't think that was that big of a deal, to turn that around, but I also think it helped develop the story for Alex in the show. To be like, oh, this is where the stem of his abuse comes from. So I think it was a good change.
Personally,
it adds more depth to the Alex character.
That comparatively, for the first one, I felt much more pity for Alex from the show than I did from the comic.
There was a big swerving character change versus show and versus comic book. Because in the comic book, he was kind of a dick.
He was. And then at the end of the show, when he does that eternal sleep thing, I felt bad for Alex.
Which I think Gaiman may have done on purpose to show you. And I watched this actually with my sister and brother-in-law, and it is not their normal show. Well, my brother-in-law it is. My sister not so much. But they watched it all the way through and loved it, which made me very happy. Because, exposing them to one of my favorite writers, it was a big deal for me. But one of the things that they had to keep being reminded of is that Dream is not a hero.
Yeah.
He is a force of nature.
Yeah.
If there is a hero, maybe death. But Dream is not a hero.
No.
Dream is just a force. He sometimes does very good things. You can sometimes move him to compassion, but sometimes you can't.
You have to move him there. Compassion is
that's not his default setting. Yeah, if you just let him do his thing,
do you know where he is
will be
easily
cold.
moved to?
Fucking vengeance.
Pettiness, yes.
Yeah, that little boy.
I was going to say that vagina,
eventually.
but yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually, but there were a handful, and I told you this when I read the comics first time, too, and it's in the show as well. There are a handful of times where I don't fucking like him.
And that's the point. That is the point, because in the comics, you're like, yo, bro, why? Why?
But, yeah, if you go through all 9 volumes of the original Sandman, and you exclude all the other things, like Death's offshoots, and like Delirium one-shots, and everything else, it is sort of a redemption story, but the irony is, spoilers ahead, that the more human Dream becomes, the less equipped he is to do his job, to the point that it is taken from him.
Speaking of being taken from him,
no spoilers.
This first panel, this is a exact shot that they showed. They did the exact
full page
panel.
Gorship is showing is of him with the mask and the pouch and the gem curled up in the circle, and that is the first full page panel from the Sandman comic is that exact scene, and they took it shot by. It's the first beautiful example where I was like, oh
yeah, that's how you knew.
Here.
That's how you know. Yeah. And I do think that some of the things that happen in the dreaming, post not being able to have people sleep or people who were forever awake, I think they did a real good job of showing that mass hysteria. Caused by, I forget the exact names that they use for. Like,
I think they do it better in the show than they do in the comic.
The sleep sickness.
Yeah.
The sleep sickness that was shown in the comics, though, was a little bit more obviously extreme and exaggerated, showing different people from all over the world and how some people went crazy, some people died from not waking up.
I do kind of miss the one with I think he was 15 years old in World War I. Student. He was a soldier who was like 15 because he lied about his age to get into the army. And he's just, it's just one of the little one-off stories. But man, it was one of those little heartbreaking tales that you're like, damn. And I will say the way they showed people who were protected by the gem exploding anyone that was threatening them. Whew, that was some
psychopaths. That was some psychopath imagery. I appreciated
Good
that.
Example.
Now,
and again, right out of the comic.
That transition, though, it was out of the comics, but who and how it was done is where I kind of default. Because, all right, so it was Edith. She ran off. But this one, instead of her running off with the butler, the butler that she was actually in love with, and stealing all the stuff from Magus, and then, her turning on him, it was her just getting pregnant and running off with her son.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a big change because the butler wound up being the guy who falls in love with Alex instead. And they wind up being all together. What did you think about that change? Like, it doesn't really matter, but I thought in the comics it added more depth to, this was a secret plot all along of 2 lovers trying to steal from the old rich white guy, and then, one of them turning on the other again and having to pay the consequences. I thought that was good for the comic story. It would have been nice to see it in the actual Netflix adaptation, but I thought, him wanting to have the son aborted rather than keep it, because in the comics, if I remember correctly, he wanted to keep the baby so he could
raise it as a wizard or something.
Fuck Alex, right?
Yeah.
He was so abusive to fucking Alex.
He was a monster. Jesus. Yeah. And again, I think in the show he was a little more of a monster than in the comic. In the comic, they were more a little copacetic. There was less of that unwanted child, like. But
not
I like
as good as the son that died.
Yeah, I like that spin on it, and I don't know if the changes were made because in these types of shows, a lot of times characters will be combined. Like, I'm going to have this character also be the character that does this, so I don't have to bother making a big deal out of this other character because we only have so many episodes. I thought, because Sandman, for those that don't know, is Vertigo Comics, which is a branch of DC, but it's a more experimentative branch. With Vertigo Comics, they're willing to kind of do some crazy shit, for lack of a better term. Yeah. They're a lot more willing to go out on a limb. I did not think that the Sandman comic would make as many reference to DC Comics as it did. But the episode where the... I can't remember his name, but the young man who's the Sandman superhero... Do you remember his name?
Yeah.
Thank you, Cecilia. Jed is he's fighting villains. The villains that are coming up that are scrolling are the rogues gallery of the Flash. The top, the Pied Piper. Those are Flash villains.
I recognize Pied Piper, but I wasn't sure if it was the same Pied Piper.
Yeah, but
the
only reason I knew it was is because when she's at the computer, the Wayward Dream, the nightmare that didn't want to be a nightmare anymore.
I love
Thank
her.
you. Yeah. So much cooler than the comic, I'll say that.
Yeah.
When she's like bringing up the files, she's like, "Oh, who are you fighting this week?" You saw Captain Cold, you saw the Top, who was my favorite Flash villain, and we might get into that one day. But I love the Top. And then it went to the Pied Piper, and the picture was from the comic books. It was like a drawn picture of the Pied Piper, and that's how I knew. And then he got attacked by the rats, and because that was what was happening to him in the real life. That was terrifying.
That was fucking terrifying.
Like, I don't think anything scared me more. Even the fucking diner scene scared... I don't think anything scared me more than when that little kid got covered in rats. And I was like, Jesus, that's
Personally,
terrifying.
though, back to the original question, I do actually like that... And I think it makes more sense for her character arc throughout the whole show for her to have run off with her kid to keep him. And I think considering everything that happens with her personally... I do think that is a thing that makes the most sense, and it gives a through line to, and I mean John Dee is also a different character from the comic.
I mean, he's obviously not a monster looking. You know, he doesn't look as fucked
fucking
up.
Lupin.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was saying that before. I was like, I really enjoyed the casting for the guy to play John Dee because one, the actor is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But secondly, it brought a more grounded, realistic version of John Dee as someone who's a psychopath who is constantly paranoid from the way that the jewel made him, versus someone who was just so disfigured from using the jewel and the power of it, like in the comic.
Yeah.
Yes, he looked scary in the comics and it was nightmare fuel in its own right.
Yeah.
But come on, practically wise nowadays, if you saw someone who looked like that, you wouldn't be like, "Hey, mister, do you need a ride?"
So they make him cute and innocent worked better.
And Rosemary, thank God she was okay and she got to live through it.
I kind of felt
I
was worried about it.
I was too.
Because you
also worried about the dog. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like the dog was the most important part of that. It's like, don't kill the dog. I mean, if she dies,
just like my sister. She was like, "Please don't hurt the dog."
I mean, that's how
my sister was like, "Fuck this bitch. She shouldn't have picked him up. But don't worry. Please don't hurt the dog. The dog's innocent and all this." I'm like, the dog's why she picked him up. She's like, that dog will rip you up. You mess with me.
But I mean, I also like to change that. You know, how Rosemary in the comic or the show versus what actually happened with the person who gave him a ride in the comic. Because the person in the comic that gave him a ride, he wound up murdering.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, he ended up. There he is.
I had that. This
sorry. I wanted to remind myself of how different he looked.
This panel right here is actually another one that is directly from the comic, and this is the panel where Alex finally comes down to the basement one last time, and his wheelchair breaks the seal finally.
Yeah.
Now, in the comics, I know it wasn't on purpose.
Yeah.
It
sort of looked like it was.
And in Netflix, it looks like he accepted the fate. He had lived a very long life with his boyfriend, which also leads me to the question of time in this, because when they talk about it, he's like, "Oh, I've been in here for over a century. It's 100 years."
Yes.
So how old is Alex and his boyfriend then?
Yeah.
Because if he's been there since Alex was a child in 1916,
Alex
is over 100 years old.
Yeah.
How's his boyfriend that old too?
I assume that Magic. I assume that they've made some other dark deals and
possibly
because I mean they were looking for a cure for death, and this may be only true in my head, but I thought that at some point in the comic they said something about like we've come so close, like something about extending life, like we're so close to solving the death dilemma, like this is why we need to capture death, like we're missing one little piece that we need.
Well, they had all the instruments. They didn't have the actual entity of death. They had all the instruments to get death.
Yeah,
but then that's where they.
But I assume they have an extended life thing. Yeah, but in this time, when the wheelchairs turn, you get the little smirk. Of what's his name, the driver of said wheelchair,
Alex.
Yeah, Alex, and he was the one who was saying, like, maybe we should let him go.
This is the last time I will come down here.
Yeah.
Alex just wanted to be left, like, he didn't want any part of this, at least in the show.
Like, if I let you go, will you please not hurt me and my lover?
Yeah.
He just wants some peace. He never wanted to keep death.
And because Dream couldn't promise him that he wouldn't hurt him.
His his inclination towards vengeance is his own downfall.
And it's also funny, and I didn't connect this until watching the show, but Dream is talking like, why did none of the enlists come to help me? And then when he gets out and he's talking to Dev, that's like, well, why didn't you fucking ask?
Yeah. Like, you could have reached out.
But Dream is stubborn.
That whole scene where Dream is like, why are you being such a little bitch? That bit, I love
you mean
that.
where Death is saying that to Dream?
Yeah.
But the Dream's response as to why he didn't, call her up, he's like, well, I didn't want to bother. Is this a BetterHelp commercial? I didn't want to bother you. I was trapped for over a century, but I didn't want to ask my siblings for help.
I'm also going to be really salty about the fact that you didn't anyways.
By the way, our sponsor this week is BetterHelp. I wish. Just kidding. Anyway.
But, I mean, I will say this whole thing, the freeing of Dream from the chamber, breaking the seal, all this was almost shot for shot, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So all of it was shot for shot, except for the way that it happened and the motive behind it.
Yeah.
Alex is much nicer than Netflix's adaptation.
Yes.
And that, like we said...
To show what a dick Dream is.
Yes.
I do believe that.
We've got to accentuate.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it kind of brings me to my point. Even in the comic version... Alex being a dick, Dream was still a dick regardless.
Mm-hmm. This is true.
Yeah.
So, whether he was nice or not, Dream was always going to be a Dream, which is a petty dick.
He is such a
which
petty dick.
will bring me forward when we get to hell.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when
that is some incel behavior. I'm just telling you.
Oh my god.
That is some incel behavior.
Let's...
So, but before I jump too far ahead, when the Netflix version, I popped. I got really happy when I thought about the way that they did this, because I was like, oh my god, he's on the beach. He's playing volleyball with a hot girl. Yeah. He's chasing the hot girl, and all of a sudden, boom, his whole world's upside down, and now I'm free.
Yeah.
And then we get to the probably most famous thing.
Yeah.
This was the piece of resistance. This was Dream pulling himself back into the dreaming world.
Yeah.
And that panel, as soon as I saw it in Netflix, I was like, Gaiman, you beautiful bastard. You genius. You made us wait for 30 years.
It's another scene that's got to happen.
It was the perfect time, place, production, crew, everything seemed all lined up.
Yeah.
And our technology now for graphics is exactly where it needs to be, because this, maybe 10 years ago, would not have looked that good.
Oh, man, I don't know. I shudder to think of what it would have looked like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When he goes into the dreaming, that is really beautiful. Mm-hmm. I love that shot and the way it kind of folds in.
Actually, yeah, and I just thought of this. It doesn't quite start this way, because you do get about just a minute, maybe a minute and a half in the dreaming, so that when he comes back to the dreaming, you can see how much it's fallen in his absence.
Yes.
I forgot about that. Yeah, the opening scene is actually
pretty.
him, in the dreaming. It's beautiful. You get to see the guards, the griffin, the dragon, and the unicorn. And he's talking to the librarian, like, yeah, I'm gonna go. Should be a quick trip. Got to get the Corinthian back. He's gone AWOL.
That was another thing that I kind of was like, that's not the whole reason why he... Like, originally when they showed that, why he was going to the waking world, and then him getting pulled into the orb, I was like, that's not at all why he got pulled into the orb.
Yeah. They made the Corinthian a bigger part than he was in the comic.
I think even if they left that part out...
They also made him way sexy.
I'll agree to that.
I mean, I thought he was sexy in the comic, but yeah.
He looks identical from the comic, just
so good.
Like the perfect
perfect casting.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But it kind of... It took me out for half a second. I'm not going to sit here and complain and bitch and moan, because we got something so great out of it.
Yeah.
But because I do love the Corinthian so much, and that whole way that his story plays out from the comics, I was like, that felt like an unnecessary thing, but I get why they had to have some excuse to have him in the waking world.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was actually necessary, because you could have just had them pull him into it. He could have been chilling with Lucien in the throne room, discussing something about how to handle a situation that we will eventually all see play out in the future.
Yep.
And then he could have got pulled in.
Well, in the comic, the Corinthian and Fiddler's Green, they all get out
out of curiosity
after he gets locked up. Yeah. In this, Corinthian escapes first, but it all comes to the same conclusion of Corinthian kind of shaking Dream and being like, "This is what you made me. Yeah. How can you be upset?" That this is why I have no fear about getting into heaven. If it turns out that I'm wrong about being an atheist and God gets in my face starts talking some shit, I'm going to be like, look,
you made me to question you.
You gave me the mind that could not believe in you. Yeah. You set me up to fail. This is on you, man.
This is your fault.
Which is why Corinthian, like, it kind of broke my heart when he gets again, obviously, fucking spoilers, people. You have to watch all of the Netflix special before you get here.
This podcast episode is for those who have watched
people who have finished it. We probably should have started with that, but there haven't been any major spoilers till now. But when the Corinthian is removed from existence, I felt so bad for him because he is what he, much like Dream, they are what they are. They are personifications. Well, I just mean, he is a personification of Dream. He is Dream. Corinthian is Nightmare. You cannot change your core being when you are created. I don't agree
with that. Gaunt does.
Did you think that it was a little odd that, Morpheus kept saying, like, nightmares are not meant to hurt humans, they're supposed to teach them a lesson? I thought that was a very odd thing because I don't know about you, my nightmares fucking hurt me. They fuck me up. I've had nightmares where they're like, nah, bro, you're gonna fall off this cliff till you die, and then wake up. Yeah, or you're gonna get tortured in your dream. I don't know about that. Wonder how that didn't teach me a lesson. What lesson did I learn?
I wonder how Dream feels about sleep paralysis demons. Yeah, did he make that's the thing he did?
Is that why he has beef with Lucifer? Is that why he's got beef with Lucifer? Because he's like, yo, you want to join the fucking Hell's war against heaven? So guess what, Dream? I'm gonna send demons to fuck with your nightmare people.
Is it possible? And Gorship, and I'm speaking directly to you now. This is like a wrestling promotion where Lucifer's demons are picking up side gigs with Dream being paralysis demons, and Lucifer's like, you work for this wrestling federation? I can't have you out there freelancing. What if you get hurt?
You're an independent contractor, but you're exclusively signed to my federation.
You are signed to hell. You've got torture duties. I can't have you out there sleep for paralysis. And they're like, dude, we're just advertising the company. Like, we're just advertising for hell. So it's giving them a preview.
It's like Lucifer is like the AEW. Tony Khan was like, hey, you're signed to me. I can't have you going out here being a John Moxley, pulling a GCW gig, wrestling on an indie mud wrestling show.
And we're officially out of the depth of things that I understand the references for.
This is full circle. Anyways, it's from a millionaire who has someone in a contract saying you can't do this, and they're like, but what if I do this really small independent gig?
No, I'm sorry, can't do it. Point being, like, I agree.
That was apropos.
Thank you. I agree with you, Gorship, that it's odd that he is he's like,
I think he specifically says that nightmares aren't supposed to feed off of the living. Yeah. That they exist for us.
He says hurt several times that you're not supposed to danger
But they're created for us.
Like, I guess he means physically.
We're supposed to serve the humans, is what he kept saying.
Yeah.
But I was like, what purpose does nightmares serve to humans? What teaching lesson does that give them?
Well, this is
maybe it's supposed to, like, when you get scared, you have choices, though. Like, you can choose to be like, you can choose to sit in that fear and let it paralyze you, or you can choose to find a way to combat that fear. And maybe that's what nightmares are supposed to do.
That is too optimistic of you. No.
Well,
I am allowed to have out-of-character moments.
It can every once in a while, optimism never hurt anyone. Just don't make it a habit, Cecilia. I feel like one of two things is happening. Either Dream is just justifying his shitty behavior. He's like, I make nightmares. Fuck you. They're helping. Like an abuser who's like, I'm doing this for your own good, you know.
Oh, God.
I'm just teaching you
to
be better. He would be,
though. That is the kind of logic.
Sort of seems like it, right? Oh. Or it's operating, because Dream is a force of nature, he's operating on a level. How big of a business is Dream interpretation? Like, how much money is made by you going to people and being like, tell me what this fucking dream meant? How many books are sold?
On Yahoo Answers as a child.
How many books are sold because I want to know what spiders coming out of my grandmother's mouth means in dreams. So maybe it is that these things are supposed to help us, but only our subconscious mind can understand, and when we're awake, we can't access that. So there's a barrier in the delivery of the message. It's like trying to learn a chemistry lesson that's being taught to you in Japanese.
Talking about spoilers, though.
Sure.
Later in the comics, there are... I don't want to say episodes, but I'm going to say episodes. There are episodes where the
show has overtaken the comic at this point.
The whole point is just following the one person's dream and the way that dream affects the choices that they make.
Yeah.
And
which is something I want to talk about because they blend two stories together into one to make this TV show work. Which I'm like, I get it cuts out a lot of the middleman time from what was in the comic, but I felt it was so integral in the comic that they needed just a little bit more time to explain it. One more episode of the show would have fixed that.
Yeah.
But that's me being greedy, obviously. Mm-hmm. But a little backtrack. So, did anybody else get a little bit heartbroken when Jessime was shot to fucking death into the glass? I know that didn't happen in the comics. I know she is in the comics before Matthew.
Excuse me.
Jessime the Raven.
Yeah. I was
that comic, I was like, that never happened.
Well, they mentioned the previous Raven, but you don't hear any details about how it.
Well, no. Like, when they're in hell, he tells, like, my previous Raven, Jessime, just says she died.
Yeah.
They don't actually show.
Yeah.
In the comic whatsoever, what happened to her, just, Matthew, be wary. I go through a lot of Ravens. You will just be another Raven.
Yeah.
I love
Matthew.
And
Oswald. Patton Oswald was the best choice.
So good.
I just love the sarcastic little witty characters that come in with the quips.
Well, between him and what's Pumpkinhead's name? Merv.
Yeah,
Thank
there you
you.
go.
I'm so bad with names. But
it's Mark Hamill. Of course, I have to remember that.
I knew his voice actor's name. Dream needs that. Dream needs someone from the librarian to Merv to his Raven to shake him and be like, "What the fuck, man?"
Yeah.
Like, and Death does it best, but you can't have Death. You can't overuse any one character. So you need to have a cadre of people who can come to Dream and question.
An army.
And question his worldview, because he is such a. When Neil Gaiman writes him, he can write a story where Dream is such a charismatic asshole that you find yourself agreeing with him until that character shows up and goes, "Hey, here's another way to think about it." And you're like, "Oh shit, Dream, you stop with your rose-scented words. You're leading me down the primrose path." But yeah, you need someone like Delirium or Death.
I love Delirium.
Can't wait for Delirium to show up.
I was upset that we didn't get more of the siblings this season, but I know it's because the overall arch that we all are waiting for is going to be great.
Gaiman's ability to hold back is very awesome, because I was afraid he was just going to fucking fire all of his guns at once. Yeah, he only mentions destruction a little. He's like the one who abdicated. He doesn't really go into details. Delirium doesn't show up.
About Destiny.
Destiny doesn't show up.
Yeah, I used to quip about Destiny just being wrapped up in his
Delirium was my favorite, though. Out of everyone in this comic, Delirium is my girl.
Said the purple-headed gal.
A little disappointed with the character design of Desire for the live action. Not Desire. Sorry, Despair in the live action version. Okay. I was a little.
You want more boobs?
No. I wanted her to be more grotesque. She just looked like she was a little greasy. That's it.
Just a little sad.
She just looked like a normal person who you would see shopping at the mall who just happened to be a little greasy in the hair. That's it. She didn't look creepy.
Only complaint.
The creepiest part was clawing her face.
Yeah, the only complaint I have about appearances would be that Despair.
Desire was on point.
Yeah,
Despair was top. Oh my god.
Would every time I saw Despair in the comics,
cringe.
I
felt
felt
out of
sorry for her. Despair.
I cringed out of that, that, like you had to be born like that and made like that.
Yeah,
no wonder why you hate your siblings.
Yeah, I love that, and Despair's other purpose is to show a different side of Desire, because Desire only cares about one sibling, and that is Despair. And at first, they're twins, and it makes sense. Like, anyone that has desired has despaired, and vice versa. The Buddhist would say that, like, despair is nothing but the lack of fulfillment of your desires because you're wanting, which you shouldn't do. So it's a work of art that they're siblings.
And twins.
And twins. And at first it also seemed... Yeah, they're all siblings, you're right. But at first it seems as if Desire just uses Despair for the ends. But then you see those genuine moments, not so much in Season 1, I can't wait. There's going to be more of it in Season 2, if they follow along, of where Desire's like, loves Despair and actually cares and comforts Despair. And I don't need my bad guys to be one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And even Desire, who is easily the most evil of the Endless, is not one-dimensional. Like, and that is something that Neil Gaiman does that I greatly appreciate.
Which is funny, because everyone thinks death. By the natural concept of death.
Yeah.
Death is
I don't know.
scary. The natural concept of death in the living world is scary.
Skulls
it's something
and sights.
fearful.
Yeah.
It's death is imposing and like it's the most terrifying thing.
The worst boss of all the Castlevania games.
It's just a girl doing her job. Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's just like that whole beautiful transition of walking and bitching out dream about being a little wuss and like get over yourself. Get over yourself.
I love death.
Like, and then he's like, how do you do it? It's just a job. It's a job, and they need me as much as I need them. Because who's gonna? I'm there for them at the end. They know that.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it makes people who fear death slightly less afraid. And that if you can do one thing in this sad, sorry sack of a life that we live, making the one thing that everyone fears a little less scary, you've done good work, and Neil Gaiman has done good work.
Well, I don't.
Because she's very easy on the eyes.
That's true too. But I also don't. I don't think it's something that Neil Gaiman alone has done. I think that there is especially lately, like a rehabilitation of Death's image. Almost.
A death renaissance.
Yeah. Well, it's
I never knew
Thief.
that.
The Book Thief is from the point of view of death,
Mm-hmm.
and all that is about is how much death loves life, and how much pity and how much care death takes.
It's like the ancient Native American poem was about how death was in love with life, but they can never be together. So death would always send life would always send death gifts.
Yeah. Well, and it's just there does seem to be a rehabilitation. Even there's a comic that I've seen on the internet that's just life and death, and like death will pick up the dead things, but like there is sort of a rehabilitation with the way, maybe not all of society, but maybe younger people are interacting with.
Well, because we're sadder.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's because
Death is a release.
Younger generations have a harder time dealing with the depression and the despair, of the reality we live in. So maybe that's why we're more comfortable with the joke of dying and death. And, it's kind of like, well, if it happens, it happens. Whereas, all these older people, like my mother and my grandparents, are all clutching their pearls about, like, well, what happens if I die? I don't want to die. And it's like, well, what will you do if I die? I was like, well, I'll grieve for a little bit, obviously, but, life will still go on.
Yeah,
I don't mean to make you feel worse about possibly dying, but I'm a little bit more accepting of like, well, how are you gonna feel if you die before me? I won't feel anything.
You can't make me feel bad about you dying, Gorship. Don't even worry about it.
Thank you. That's all I want out of people. That's all I want. Like, you think it's gonna bother me? Like, well, don't you die before me? How do you think I'll feel if you die before me? I won't feel anything. I won't care. So the better that you feel about me dying, the better I'll feel about me dying.
Well, and there was in older times. I think the Christians are to blame for a lot of this.
You heard it here first.
Well, there was a tendency to celebrate the life of the people who had died.
Louisiana
wakes,
New Orleans, Death March.
Well, even but like what is it? There's a goddess of death or whatever that's worshipped in like Mexico.
Yeah, Santa Muerte.
Yeah, that's the one. There's the interactions with death are very interesting. Overall.
See, I ironically enough, being Hispanic, when I was growing up in a very Catholic Mexican household with my abuelita and my aunts and uncles and stuff, being baptized Catholic, which I guess if there is a hell or a heaven, I'm definitely fucking going to one of them, because if you're baptized, woo, you're definitely going to one place.
Once you go under the water, you can't say you didn't know better.
But being Catholic, all I have to do is repent like 40 times on my deathbed, and I'm still at it. Those are the rules of Catholicism, and I will play by those rules if I need to.
If you're lucky, yeah.
I'm just going to have like a prayer, like a litany of prayers from all the different faiths. We'll cover all the.
We had a small group of Hispanic.
I just want a couple
of our family that lived in
eyes.
Mexico.
Yeah,
we would visit them over the weekends, and there was one aunt and uncle who didn't worship natural, quote unquote, natural religion. They worshipped Santa Muerte in their town because that's what their town worshipped in that small little sub-city village of Mexico. It was right on the outskirts of Mexico City, like central Mexico, where my dad grew up. Mm-hmm. He grew up in a place called Michoacan, and that's the area where a lot of the town, not all of them, but majority of them, worship Santa Muerte, and they're all depicted as a beautiful skeleton woman. Mm-hmm. They're like, we don't fear her, we love her.
Yeah.
We know if she came to visit that, she's taking somebody we love, but it's a blessing, not a curse. Yeah. So that goes back to what you're saying. I actually... that unlocked that from the vault of my brain. Damn.
If you're stalking Gorship, you should now have all the information you need about his lineage. You should be able to find him. But you were saying, Cecilia?
No, it's just I think that there's a very Christianized white Anglo vision of death as a punishment.
As a mourning.
Well, it's a punishment for your life. You die because you can't live eternally and with God or whatever bullshit. As opposed to looking at death as a natural thing that occurs because you can't live forever.
And that's why Neil Gaiman made death fun.
Yes.
Let's make death fun again. That's what we need on a t-shirt.
But one thing that you can do is you can redeem death in both our living world and in the comics. Now, it's going to be a little harder with the way that Dream starts acting once he's free to redeem the Dream King. And this panel example,
it took
this
9
was
volumes.
Another great example of image-for-image shots from the comics. And I love the scene of Dream turning into the cat with the glowing eyes.
Yeah.
Dream and the glowing cat thing, because I love the little side story that's in this that they never showed, of where it's the cat's dreaming of the world that they rule. I wish that would have been
the world that used to be.
Yeah. I love this, and I also love the points where Game is like, you have to show his eyes not always being baby fucking blue. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He needs to not look human. So when they would do the part where his eyes were just casting shadow and you just see the little moon glimmer in his eye, I was like, yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes. I was worried that wouldn't happen enough. And near the end, it was always just, all right, pretty boy. But this shot right here was the first one I was like, fucking yes.
Yeah.
The creepy cat on the chair. And then punishing Alex to forever sleep. Even though in the comic book, he deserved it, but in the
comic, it's forever waking.
Oh, forever waking.
Yeah, where he keeps dreaming that he's waking up.
I thought was much more terrifying. That's another... I probably only have 3 nitpicks about this entire thing, and that was one of them, because...
eternal waking.
The first time I read about the eternal waking, I was like, that's horrible. Because anyone who has ever dreamed that they woke up and done something, and then suddenly woke up for real... It's even if what you're doing is mundane as making breakfast or going to work. When you actually wake up again, your heart hurts.
Yeah.
You're especially God. I've had many a time where I've been at work and then woke up and I haven't gone to work yet. I'm like, I got to do this twice? Fuck this. This is a nightmare. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I really felt bad for Alex. Mm-hmm. And I didn't
obviously in the show, right?
In the show. Okay. Yeah, no. In the comic, I was like, yeah, that's kind of, it's gruesome, but what did you expect to happen?
Yeah.
The way he was in the show was such a different person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That when he got punished, I was like, why are you being a dick so early, though?
Which I think it's okay to make him a sympathetic character. I think it's okay to make him a sympathetic character, because I think nowadays too many shows, they do this thing where everyone's a villain.
Yeah.
Not enough heroes. Yeah. Or not enough middlemen.
Which is what I was saying earlier. Neil Gaiman, he tries not to make just black and white characters.
And so that being stuck in the eternal waking brings us to the end of the first episode. And it seamlessly transitions into what I love to call the most beautiful opening with Cain and Abel and the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets.
Yes.
I loved seeing them because it was like, oh my god, these guys, the facial hair is everything spot on.
They did the facial hair. I did not think they would do the hair, but they did the hair.
I love Cain and Abel, actually.
They're great characters.
I loved seeing Gregory. Gregory was a cute little pet doggo.
And Goldie.
That's easy, little Goldie.
Gregory and Goldie.
And it's like, oh, can I pet that dragon? Can I pet that dragon? Yeah. So fucking cute. Yeah. So fucking cute.
Yeah.
And
again, another example of, although the dreaming is much kinder in removing the before he replaces it with Goldie, which again is something that Dream. It seems as if Dream, even this early in the comics, is showing a bit of heart occasionally.
Yeah.
He's
a dramatic little bitch.
Yeah, he's a dramatic bitch.
I do also like in the comic how the first place Dream lands by accident when he lands back into the dreaming is after he's in the middle of the walking through the vortex, and he's like got his cool little cloak back on,
Yep.
and he's looking at like all the different things that have passed over time that he missed out on.
Yeah,
just going through that little tunnel. He shows up at Cain and Abel's place and just gets dropped like a sack of potatoes by Gregory. Like, oh, well, I guess the master's back. We better take care of him.
He looks pretty tired.
Yeah.
Where you been, sir?
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool, but I also, my heart broke in the episode when, he's like, I still have enough power. I have to take something that I created back.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't mean to be a dick, but Dream, you dick! You created so much other stuff that wasn't living in the dreaming world that you could have absorbed. Why did it have to be Gregory? Why did it have to be the living thing?
Because the emotion attached to it was part of what gave him power, yeah. I don't feel like they explained that, and this may just be me,
Devil's advocate.
Well, not devil, more,
they didn't, though.
Explaining it away for myself.
Yeah.
But it felt like it had to be, it just felt like it had to be something that someone cared about. Like, if he just took an old tree, I don't think there's any power in that, but all of these guys, and they say it over and over again, are only as powerful as people's belief in them.
Yeah.
So I feel like for Dream, it's the same. He can only take power from the things that he created that someone cares about, that people believe in. And since the Dreamland had been decimated, there wasn't a lot of that left. And he did replace it with Goldie. Yeah, it had to be Gregory. Or Dream's an asshole. You got two options here. I prefer to think this is the beginning of his 9 graphic novel volumes redemption arc. I want it to start here, but I'm totally okay with someone being like, no, he's just being a dick.
And actually, on that note too, when he's in the dreaming, Lucian. Can we talk about Lucian? Sure. Lucian was a great choice of casting. I love that actress. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love just very subtle. Oh, keep the elf ears. That's all you fucking need. The cool glasses and the elf ears.
Yeah.
Anybody that listens to this and is upset that Lucian was gender swapped and race swapped, you can go fuck yourself. That's a hard F, and I fully endorse this by Gorship. They don't have to endorse it, but I endorse that.
No, I endorse it.
You haven't heard our other episodes. Yeah. You're in a safe place here.
Okay, I'm just saying, like, cool. The acting was fucking great, and she was the perfect antithesis to keep
another foil for Dream.
Kind of kept him in check and kind of maldocked him, and he's like, "Mind your place, Lucian." She's just like,
you know what? I'm just gonna go file some books.
I will go mind my place, bitch. And
you're gonna come back on your knees. Yeah. I'm gonna go file some books until you get your brain back. Yeah. And then you can walk in here and say you're sorry.
Which was so hard for him.
Yeah.
We're
and Fiddler's Green calls him out on it. He's like, you know what? He said he was sorry.
The Dream I knew wouldn't be able to even say your excuse
again. The beginning of the redemption arc. It starts in volume 1. Like.
Now, I also forgot to mention at the end of Volume 1, or Episode 1, when the Corinthian is chomping on those luscious eyeballs and dripping all over the reports about, Jed, and we first start getting to talk about Rose Walker.
Yeah.
I was a little disturbed. I'm a horror fan, but the squelching noise is what always gets me, and the chomping
good sound
of the eyeballs.
Effects.
Yeah.
Whoever did the Foley work in that,
and I did love the switch up of how we transitioned to the story of Rose Walker in this series.
Yeah,
and like the blending of kind of changing the Unity Kincaid story around a little bit, to fit the show. I was okay with it. Some people thought it didn't make any sense. I think it did make sense.
Oh, it worked with the story.
Yeah, but I mean, again, these are the people that are nitpicking that everything is not verbatim, from the source material.
Well, there's some of the stuff that they couldn't take, though. Like, John Dee's, his whole backstory got changed.
Yeah.
Like, he's not in Arkham. He was just in an asylum.
Fun little homage to him, though.
I thought it was Belle Reeve, honestly. I thought it was another...
It's Arkham because Scarecrow shows up.
No. I'm talking about in the TV show. I thought it was in Belle Reeve because it's a psychiatric place, which is what Belle Reeve is.
Yeah, but it was in the middle of the city. And it was paid for by his mom, so I don't know if it was or not. But I will say this: there's a little homage that when they're cycling through the villains for the Sandman to fight and decide on the Pied Piper, one of the pictures that scrolls by really quick is Dr. Destiny. Dr. Destiny is this guy with his full costume while he's fighting the Justice League of America. Okay. So there is a quick little homage to his alter ego, the evil villain Dr. Destiny. But
the overall way that they show John is almost the same. Location and background have changed.
Yeah.
He is not the bastard child of Edith and the butler anymore. He is the bastard child of the rich Magus, Roderick.
Yeah.
And so I thought that
it's a good excuse for why he's able to modify the gem so it only works for
natural
him.
Inclination to sorcery.
Yeah.
So I think it worked.
As he said, it's my birthright.
Yeah.
Very, very entitled of him to think that.
Well, it's his gem. It came from his dad.
But
where does Dad get it? Not relevant. It's kind of
like the England museums, like that's their thought process. Where does this come from?
Or the Civil War argument. It's
not important.
It's about states' rights.
States'
rights to what?
Should you return that golden capsule back to the Spaniards or to the Jewish, organizations, or to the East Indians? Or...
I don't think it's relevant whether I should. What is relevant is that I'm not going to.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Your friends, England and America and Germany and France and anyone else that ever stole something from another country and stuck it in a glass case.
But that whole thing with John Dee, I was okay with him not making him look like a monster and the slight change in his backstory.
Yeah.
Because it still made sense. They still made sense. Uh-huh. I like the fact that he was just psycho because of an overbearing mom.
Yeah. Overbearing mom and a gem that slowly chipped her away at his sanity.
Yeah.
Bad combo.
But think about it, she had possession of that before him, so how much of her sanity was chipped away before?
You wonder.
She traded it.
But it also seems like she was much smarter with it because she was like, okay, one dream a year. We never use this outside of that thing. We keep it boxed up and hidden. And some of that was her fear that Dream would eventually get loose and come after it. But a lot of it was, I think, that she was very wise in knowing how much you needed to stay away from that kind of power because she fucking knew Magnus and knew what a psychopath he ended up and how paranoid he was by the end.
But she didn't know that he... I mean, alright, so she didn't know that he died, but she did tell John that his father died when he was a baby.
I mean, I think she was
just
law of averages here. He ain't gonna live forever.
Yeah, she guessed correctly.
She was fucking a 70-something-year-old man at the time, and she was in her 20s, so...
Yeah, she wanted to learn magic. And there wasn't an internship program back then. You had to do what you had to do to learn that shit.
It was an internship program. It's the same internship that, Hugh Hefner used to employ.
Or Epstein. Yeah. Sad but true.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
But,
sorry.
This took a real dark turn.
I put Magnus in that same horrible group because he's a horrible man.
Yeah.
Real dark turn.
Yeah.
And, of course, the beautiful, beautiful landscape of the dreaming. How did you all feel that comparatively to the Netflix version and the comic book version, which one did you like better? They were both really good.
They were
Which
both
one did
really
you
good.
like the look of more?
I mean,
They were changed.
I'm gonna say the comic, but not for any fault to Netflix, only because the comic was able to dwell there more. Because Netflix has a budget. Like comics, I can draw any fucking thing I want, and I don't have to worry about special effects budgets. Whereas Netflix spent a lot of time in the library and the Great Hall, and less time out and about.
Here's the
because
thing,
they
though.
had to. What?
I love the library, so I'm perfectly fine with the fact that they spent more
time
there.
in the library,
Go
the better.
For it.
Yeah.
I am a person who's still sad that the Library of Alexandria burnt. So,
not in the dreaming.
Not in the
All
dreaming.
those books are still somewhere on the shelves in
and
the
that's
dreaming.
my idea of heaven. But personally, I liked the way it looked more in the show.
Okay, fair enough.
I liked the more realistic nature of it in the show, in the sense that, of course, it's the dream versus the realism. Well, I like the realism because it was a little bit more darker. What happens to a light when it's cracked? It's dim. Yep. So the entire dreaming world was dim.
Yeah.
And falling apart like sand. Parts of it was literally crumbling like a sandcastle.
Through the hourglass.
And I just thought that was a really nice take. I loved that they kept the door the same, with the giant dragon and the griffin. I thought that was
and
great.
the unicorn. Don't forget the unicorn.
I love that.
Yeah.
Also, like that when they saw, I enjoyed the Cain and Abel kill.
Yeah.
I was like, it has to happen.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
Yeah.
I was like, if Cain leaves the scene without murdering Abel, I am going to be extremely pissed.
All right, place your bets now. Season 2, Episode 1, opening, going to be another Cain and Abel death scene. That's my prediction. I'm making it now. That's how it's going to open Season 2, is with Cain and Abel and a murder. That is my prediction. We shall see if it comes true. It's not comic canon, but Cain does kill Abel. I mean, there's a lot of murder in there, and I think they're going to start Season 2 off with one, just to get your motor running. That's where I think we're going to start. It's a nice little one-off that doesn't have, it doesn't
have any real impact either.
Exactly.
It's
a nice little opening.
Season 2 is going to flashback. Is going to start with a flashback to Morpheus and Lucifer. Okay. Because I think Season 2 is going to be heavily focused on the Lucifer arc.
By the way, great cliffhanger where you've got Dream between Desire and Satan, both kind of like, we'll get him next time, my pretty. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that the overall arching story for Season 2 will be the
ownership
Lucifer,
of hell.
Yeah, the Lucifer story that we all love so much.
Oh my god, I love
from
it.
the Lucifer show.
Which leads into
Which is
the
why I got my
actual
sister
Lucifer
into
story.
it. She was like, wait, Neil Gaiman did that, Lucifer? And I'm like, this is the story that... think of this as a prequel to Lucifer. And that's how I got her to start watching.
And Gwendolyn Christie magically turns into a handsome man.
Little smoke and mirrors.
She's so beautiful.
The Morning Star can look however they want.
She did a phenomenal job. And everybody fucking hated on the fact that, why are they having her do Lucifer? Fuck off. She kills it. Yeah. Every role she's given, I don't care. Oh, well, she's very mad. Well, who fucking cares? Lucifer is androgynous as fuck.
Yeah.
If you were to tell me that
we'll answer that question of who fucking cares.
If you were to tell me that her character as Lucifer were to unrobe and had a giant dick, I'd be like, I believe it. If you were to tell me that Lucifer's character unrobed and said that they had the most beautiful woman's body ever, I'd be like, I believe it. It doesn't matter because her acting is so believable, it doesn't matter which way it sways.
How are you going to be the god of temptation if you can't change your form?
Exactly.
That's my question.
Well, and that's one of the reasons Desire is so androgynous. You've got, and honestly, I really like the way that they played with the shadows in those scenes, because sometimes Desire looked completely masculine and like flat.
Jawline is super cut.
And then other times, like, you could see boobs. Like, there was
extenuating of the face and the cheeks and the lips.
It was so gorgeous. Oh my god, it was beautiful. I think Lucifer...
I dreamed of a golden-eyed lover.
Yeah, I think Lucifer having that same ability to be kind of in between is actually a really neat idea.
Yeah, and even Dream, when, and I'm going to jump ahead to Hell here, where I'm most comfortable, when he's talking to his ex about the betrayal that Desire caused and all of that. And he's like,
behavior.
And all of this will be more fleshed out, I assume, in Season 2. But when they hint at it, and it's like, he's like, I haven't forgiven you yet, but he's taken the form of this, like, this African god.
Before we get any further than that, I wanted to talk in depth about that whole little mini arc in the thing. I want to talk about him collecting the totems together.
This may be first of a 5-parter, because we are not getting anywhere.
I'm trying to keep us in order.
No,
we're slightly jumping. Fair. We're slightly jumping. We'll go back to the disdain lover thing. But the pre going to hell, meeting the fates. I thought that the
fates were handled well.
I loved how they showed it again, almost panel for panel, about taking the snake, taking the all the items needed to summon the fates. I love that the fates showed up the way they did in the show. Part of me selfishly wanted them to do the very quirky, like switching cartoon faces really quickly thing. I really wanted that, but I love the way they just flashed to the different.
They did a quick kind of an homage to it, like right when they first appear, you get like the 3 or 1 amalgam, and then. It's interesting because sometimes they are 3, and sometimes they're just 1 that keeps switching between the 3. Like, there was a lot of different forms. But yeah, I'm glad the kindly ones showed up this early. I thought Neil Gaiman might, because they play such a pivotal role later on, I thought he might wait to cast them until later on, but I'm glad that they were thrown out here early. It was good, it's good shit.
And so, once Dream gets all of his questions, even though he asked too many questions, it was like, ask question, one answer!
Yeah.
And he just wouldn't fucking listen to reason and learn.
It's Dream of the Endless. I shouldn't have to obey the rules.
The rules aren't for me.
Yeah, you'll find out they are, dear.
Alright, now we can start discussing the... Goldie is given back as a gift to Cain and Abel because they were so heartbroken of having to lose Gregory.
Yeah.
I loved it. I cried when Gregory turned into sand and was reabsorbed.
Oh, that was heartbreaking.
I teared up a little bit. I was really moved. I was like, this character was so insignificant in the book. It was just a little couple panels, and in a matter of like 3 minutes in this one scene, you made me love the fact that it was kind of like a dog, and then on top of that, hate Morpheus even more for having to do this to try and get to a means to an end.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to the
although when he kills him, let's just say he is very like, I thank you for your service. I'm sorry I have to, like it was.
But it's the one teardrop. It's the one teardrop down Gregory's face that makes me go like, you.
Is there no other way?
Yeah. But I like that Cain and Abel are like, no, you're not fucking doing this.
Take us.
I'm not talking to you. And he goes to Gregory. He's like, I'm talking to Gregory. And it seemed, and maybe he would have done it anyway, but it seems like he gave Gregory the choice, and Gregory made the choice. Which, again, makes Dream a little more forgivable. And when you factor it in with him giving them Goldie at the end... You're like, it's the he's not all bad thing.
Well, see, he found the dragon's egg once he killed the snake.
Yeah.
So,
like, here you go.
Yeah, and then you get Goldie. And it's like, I'm going to name him Irvin. Gargoyles are all named with a G. How about Gervin? I'll call him Gervin. Gervin?
Gotta kill you.
Yep, and now you're dead.
It's like, oh, hello, Irvin. I mean, Goldie. I'll call you Goldie. But to me, you'll still always be Gervin.
Don't tell my brother.
Oh, well, that's just how he is in the morning. Well, most afternoons. And nights, I suppose. This is like... It's exactly like...
And he tells him the cute story of him and a brother that get along smashingly, and they're best friends, and they only have one house because they live together because they're such good friends.
And the one brother doesn't murder the other brother every day.
I'm like, you are a sweetheart. I just want to pinch your little cheeks.
Yeah. Great casting. The guys that they got to play. Again, online backlash is extremely stupid.
I'm glad you're here for it, because I have paid no attention to the online
It's not
backlash.
like I want to, but I have, unfortunately, still haven't weeded out all the ignorant friends off of my social medias or people that I follow that are ignorant.
Yeah.
It's hard to weed them all out at once, especially when they're very low-key about it most of the time.
Yeah.
But I have seen some people who claim to be big comic nerds and blah, 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 blah. You know, the usual dribble, defending their bigoted points, whether it's racist, homophobic, misogynist. But in this one, it seemed to be most of the people were upset about, like, oh, it's not wide enough. Fuck off. Fuck off.
The thing that gets
They were complaining about Cain and Abel being...
Talk about wearing it on your sleeve.
Israeli or I think that both actors are Hindu or Israeli. And they were upset that I was like, why would they be white? They're from the first tribe. They're the son of Adam and Eve. Why would they be white?
If you're going to make a complaint, you could make a complaint that the comic book is too white.
And that's because Gaiman had to appease the fucking publishers back in the day.
Well, also he was making it in England.
But
you look around, bunch of whiteys.
If you're going to make a complaint, though, you could make the complaint that the comic book is too white.
Yeah. It'd be a much better complaint.
Yeah.
And honestly, the thing that kills me about people complaining about the race of the Endless is that it's comic book accurate that their appearances change on who's perceiving them to start with.
Yep.
And to me, like, it's a stupid complaint to start with, except for stories where race is actually a component of the story. I don't understand why changing someone's race or gender is a problem.
I just had a great idea. It's probably racist.
So, full disclaimer, if he says it's probably racist, it's going to be racist, and we don't endorse it.
And the loud, clacking noise you hear is us beating him.
Yeah. Before you start the show, you click on what race you are, and then everyone in the show is whatever race makes you most comfortable.
This is not admissible in a court of law.
But it goes to what you were saying about how they appear the way you expect them to appear.
Are you telling me that they need to make multiple versions of the show with different races of actors just to appease the people who want to see? Oh, I want to watch The Sandman with all black actors. I want to watch The Sandman with all Asian actors. I want to watch The Sandman with all white actors.
To appease the comic nerds who are like, he's supposed to be how we perceive him. And I, as a white person, everyone should be white because that's how I perceive the world.
I would much rather...
It would be like the Babadook episode of Black Mirror where you're making choices all the way through. And you're like, I think death probably should be... Who am I most scared of? The Jews. Okay, we'll make death Jewish. And despair... That Asian girl that broke up with me in high school. Despair should be Asian. Like, you just hit buttons at every point. They give you a choose-your-own adventure. And you make the... God. All the neckbeards and the Nazis would be happy. And isn't that what we all want?
No.
Oh. Okay, well, in that case, fuck them.
Well, you don't need
in that case, fuck them.
You don't need to make them any more happier because they're already able to play Call of Duty as Team Nazi.
That's quite true.
So, what more do they want? They're getting to live out their fantasy as playing as a Nazi.
They just keep putting
people.
me on the Nazi team. I don't pick it, and secretly they're always picking to be on the Nazi team. This is the world we live in.
It is. And speaking of worlds we live in, when you're talking about perception...
Sure, get on it.
It's funny that you mentioned the choosing your own race thing because, I was watching with Kayla, who's a casual, has never read the Sandman comics, so me being fucking pretentious, taking notes, watching the show, was like, ooh, this didn't happen, or ooh, this happened. And I was like, oh, watch, this is about to happen. She was kind of thrown off, and I was like, and he's not white. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, look at the screen. And she's like, wait, who is that? I was like, that's Morpheus.
Who is that? And my sister had the same reaction.
And she's like, why is that? And she immediately was like, oh, it's because Dream is different in every culture and every person perceives him different. I was like, exactly.
Look at you.
so I was like, she started thinking like, is that Dream? So she was like, is Dream a cat? Because now she's like, oh, he can turn into anything. And I was like,
for cats, he's a cat.
Well, yeah. I was like, honestly, whatever that person and or species dreams, Dream appears as that.
Yeah.
Whatever their perception of dreams is, that's what
and
Dream
of course, the question was,
but for most people, he's the lead.
Why is his ex in hell? And I was like, he's petty. She's like, that petty? I was like,
incel behavior.
Yeah. Well, what did she do that was so wrong? Matthew asked later.
Yeah.
She disobeyed me.
Yeah.
Incel behavior.
Yeah.
Although it's because of Desire's machinations. It's not as simple as she betrayed me. It's Desire playing against the fucking like. It's like incel with a heavy dose of gaslighting from Desire. Like, it's this weird amalgam. Now, that being said, it is shameful that Death and Delirium both have to jump his shit. Again, this is coming in later seasons already, read the comics. Have to jump his shit before he's like, I really should get her out of hell.
It is telling that
I really should. She's been
the two women, Endless, have to look at him and be
kick
like,
him in the balls.
What is wrong with you?
And he's like, that's a good question.
Imagine,
what is wrong with me?
Just remember, this is only one of his exes he decides to free. He has others. There's others. He decides just on this one. So there are others that he has punished worse.
Yeah.
Or lesser, we don't know exactly, but he's
different
like,
amounts.
This one X.
And you wonder if the different amounts are based on how broken his heart was. And his heart being more broken from this one has to do, once again, with Desire making him desire more. Ergo, like, you can easily say it wasn't love because you don't throw your ex-lovers that you actually love into hell. You just stalk them on fucking Facebook like a fucking adult. You don't throw them into hell. But Desire, like, amped up the wrong parts of love to make him a fucking psycho. How much of this is Dream being Dream, and how much of it is Desire making Dream Desire? Because you're right.
I don't know.
Some of his ex-lovers, he's just like, go your own way. I'm cool with it.
But
and some, he's like, I'll just let you...
He's still in charge of his actions, though. And how long has she been in hell that he hasn't had enough time to be like, oh, that's on me, though. Like, I don't...
He does.
I don't forgive him for this.
No, I'm not asking for forgiveness.
She still loved him, though. Like, how dare she... Like, I was like, girl, do yourself better. How can you sit there and tell him, I love you still?
Question is, does she love him still? Or she
want
to get the hell out of hell? Yeah.
You'll tell your captor anything to be freed or get that extra cheeseburger.
Yeah, and then maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome. Maybe she does love him because he's the one that had her in prison.
Alright, now, I know we love this, talking about how fucking incel and petty Dream was in this one scenario.
Yep.
Little backtrack, keep us on track. Before we dive into hell, we have to require to get his sand back. Yep. Alright, so that whole story arc with sand and getting it back. How did y'all feel about them changing it from John Constantine to Johanna? Because in the source material, Johanna is the one from the olden days.
Yeah.
And in the modern one, it was John Constantine, our favorite one that, Keanu Reeves played, smoking cigarettes, made a deal with Lucifer.
I've never seen those movies, so.
Well,
you
would like
bad.
them because it is a little bit of, there's some Neil Gaiman influence, especially in the way Lucifer and Gabriel look. Like, angels are very
best portrayal of Lucifer I've ever seen in a movie is the one in Constantine. That actor, I forget his name, but he is fucking phenomenal as Lucifer.
Yeah. It's worth a watch. It's don't go into it expecting the Sandman or
No.
or the Lucifer TV show, but it's worth a watch, and it does kind of feel like if Neil Gaiman wrote an action movie, sort of.
Okay.
Not at the writing level, but it's worth a watch.
The demons are great when they show like John Constantine fighting, and that's why
we might do a Patreon where we watch Constantine and comment on it.
I was a little thrown off. Just because I was so excited, it's like, who did they cast as John Constantine? Who's going to be Constantine? And then, I'm not mad that it's Clara from Doctor Who. Well, I'm not mad that it was her. I was confused about the swapping. But later on, I went and saw Neil Gaiman's post explaining it, because someone else had the same question as me. And so, he was like, John Constantine wouldn't have made sense because he is rough around the edges, he's disgusting, grimy. He is exactly what Dream didn't want to encounter. In this universe of the DC universe, or the Sandman universe, Joanna is the one that needs to be because she's so much like her great-grandmother that Sandman knew. That Morpheus was acquainted with and had respect for. So, she has the attitude, the arrogance of John Constantine, like, for example, when he bailed out on his ex. She did the same thing in the Netflix show as in the comic as Constantine did. And what happens? The ex gets addicted to the sand.
Yeah.
And I loved how they made her look so disgustingly gone. Yeah. She never left.
Yeah.
She just...
Again, right out of the comics.
Yeah, like she was addicted to dreaming because all she would do is dream about John coming back to her and having a happy life together and stuff like that. And I was like, that's great. They applied the same shitty moral philosophy that John Constantine had to Joanna. Yeah. I thought that was perfect.
Giving, what's the actress's name?
Also, the coat is exact. If you look very closely, that is the exact coat with the way it's turned up. She buttoned it exactly like the comic.
Yeah. I'm just thinking Claire over and over again because Clara. They gave her a redemption arc because I was Jenna Coleman. Thank you, because I was so tired of seeing her on Doctor Who as the companion. I wanted her gone, and this was nice to see her and like it. Because, again, by the end of Doctor Who, I was like, please kill her. Please get rid of her. Please do anything. She has been a companion for, 18 seasons. Yeah. Worst companion, best Constantine. I'll go ahead and say it.
I did it confused me a little bit, too, because I was expecting a dude. And then when she said her name, I'm like, did they just keep the one from... Because they mentioned Joanna in this, too.
Yeah, she just took her grandmother's name.
Okay.
That's it. Her great-grandmother's name. Because that's the one that... Morpheus had come across before he was in prison. This right here, though, I love this. This is how I knew he was supposed to be John Constantine. The interaction with Mad Hetty, I was like, that's exactly what she did to Constantine. Yeah. John Constantine. Oh, okay, he just gender swapped, but it's not really gender swapped. It is a Constantine, but it's a different universe's take.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so this one has no connection to the DCEU one that's on TV, which is perfect, because nobody wants to watch that TV show. Not even the actor that stars as Constantine.
I also feel like maybe...
Mad Hetty was a perfect casting, by the way.
Yeah, very good. I maybe also he was trying to stay away from more well-known characters. Like Martian Manhunter is in the comic, does not appear in the show. Yeah. Scarecrow, Jonathan Crane, in the comic, not in the show.
That brings me to a point that I was going to bring up. Glad you said it.
Gender swapping Constantine might be a way to avoid a more popular character by making it a female version.
How about
also gives us a lesbian couple?
True.
Which I'm obviously there for because she is a... Even as I was hating her in Doctor Who, she's fine. She's so fine.
Well, that's how I felt about Karen Gillan. It was like, when I first saw her introduced in Doctor Who, I was like, she's obnoxious, but she's beautiful.
Yeah.
Then she grew on me.
Yeah. She grew on me and then ungrew on me because she overstayed her welcome in Doctor Who, in my opinion. But in this, she was perfect. Very good casting and very well done.
You talk about major
characters.
characters.
Neil Gaiman has a crush on her.
Because when we're talking about the flashbacks and stuff that hasn't come up yet, something that comes at one of the later episodes in the season that they completely stripped out to explain it, to make an amalgamation, was the entire dinner party of deities, of the superhero people. So, remember when they had the dinner party with like the Japanese god and then the Loki?
Oh, that comes later. That comes in a later
But that explains why what happens at the end of season 1 with the Dream Baby happens. That's why it was explained in the comic. They do away with that out of the TV show completely to explain why that happened.
No, it happens. I thought the big meeting of all the different gods happens when they're trying to decide Hell's ownership.
Yes, but that is when Loki uses that as the chance to go and Loki disguises himself as I forget who he disguises himself as. I'd have to go back through.
Right.
And basically traps that man's soul in the dream pocket.
Oh yeah,
and makes him think he's the Sandman.
Yeah, they did.
And that's why they combine Hector with Jed.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not how you find Jed. Jed is just found through his nightmares.
Yeah, that does happen.
So they combined those two stories.
Yeah.
And they completely had to erase Loki and all the other heroes that they had. Because there was Zeus, there was Loki, there was a bunch of other people that you could not legally have.
I bet you they will show up. Well, you can legally have Loki. He just can't be Marvel comic Loki. Because Loki is a god, ergo he is public domain. And the same way you can have Ares,
which,
even though Ares was the villain in the Wonder
Marvel
Woman
and Disney
movie.
have been blocked several times by courts from trying to trademark and copyright Thor, Loki.
Yeah. They would if they could, but they can't.
They've tried. They've tried. I know that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but I think because the whole legal curmudgeon, and then on top of that, fandoms, people are like, why is Loki in a DC show?
In season 2...
Because they only associate Loki with Marvel now.
In season 2... I bet you will see Loki and Thor.
He is the big reason,
but
the thing is, like, what purpose would he serve now? Because the whole reason of him in that comic strip was to explain why Hector became the Sandman in that pocket.
Oh, I don't know if he'll have as big of a part, but I think he'll be at the meeting. Because...
Well, and Hector is... So when I found an article at one point, it was talking about the differences in the show and the comic. Okay. They mentioned that Hector and Hippolyta are part of the Justice. Yeah, they're part of a Justice League, and Hector getting trapped in the pocket dimension or whatever. Well, isn't necessary anymore.
Yeah, he died because he got possessed and then killed a bunch of people, and was executed. And then Loki kidnapped his soul from the dreaming or whatever, and put it in that. I don't remember what purpose it was. It was part of a greater plan.
Yeah.
But that whole thing, it was an amalgamation that they did in the show. Because, like I said, Hector was the Sandman. He was the one that was managing. He was a superhero, and he brought Hippolyta into it. And Hippolyta was, she met...
That's right, I forgot.
She was the one that was in prison forever, and was like the muse of that guy that raped her repeatedly. Obviously, they took that shit out of the show.
Yeah.
I actually really want to commend the show for the lack of rape, because they took it out of the diner scene too.
Yes. It was all consensual. Yes. It was primal.
I was actively dreading watching that little girl get raped.
Yeah.
And then when it didn't
happen... The fact that they turned into an adult woman was...
It would be
I'm
hard
fine with that.
Also.
Consensual.
Because in the comic... The rape is followed by a scene of them all just partying together because he's just constantly changing their wants and desires. Yeah. And so I don't know how you could do that in the show without it being...
I was just really glad that it wasn't
fucked up. Yeah.
I was really glad that it wasn't there.
Yeah. Although speaking to the Muse episode, I do kind of miss the comeuppance. Like, where she gives him constant ideas, and he goes to the nut house to scream it. Yeah. Like, he's spitting out these little tidbits of stories and, just screaming on the park bench. If there was a way to give the comeuppance without the rape, but then again, the comeuppance would be unearned, and it would be you just punishing an innocent person. So there's not really a way to do it. And it's fine, because there's so much... You have 9 volumes of Sandman to get through. And there's so much that I understand you're going to have to cut things for time. And you're going to cut some of my favorite shit, because almost all of it's my favorite shit, because it's all very good.
That's part of what I wanted to talk about, is the scene where he acquires the sand and Joanna goes into her girlfriend's apartment, and you think they're having an embrace, and she's like, let's go fuck.
Yeah, you know?
And then it disappears, and you're like, oh,
Sandman shakes her.
Dream was fucking with her.
Yeah.
I wish, just some sick part of me wish they would have done it like the comic, where Constantine is going through and he goes to flip the light switch, and then he starts falling to his death out of nowhere, and then Dream just grabs him out the sky, and then he's in a mutating living room where everything's growing off the wall and bloody, and I wish they would have done something like that.
The room,
that would have been so cool if they would have actually shown him touching the disgusting
The room. I can understand wanting to have that, but I actually think it was way more heartbreaking to have them have a dream where they could have fixed it, and then to realize that she was gone.
That's all it is a dream. Yeah, that was Yeah, it was a neat alternate take, and you avoid the budgeting of making fleshy goo walls, which I'm sure assume are very expensive.
It also would have been nice to see what Dream gave her as the gift. All right, so
he
Joanna
just says
thought,
you're gonna sleep well tonight, you're not gonna have nightmares tonight.
Yeah, like she died, so, like she was just stuck dreaming forever until her death. Joanna was just like, you just fucking murdered her. You didn't have to kill her. He's like, I put her out of her misery. Yeah. I gave her peace.
Yeah.
And if they would have just shown the little bit of after effect of like, all right, this is what she gets to dream forever, that she's living with, well, I guess in this case with Joanna.
They did show this for the one he killed.
Yes.
But not for Joanna. Yeah. So they had the scene.
Again,
they just gave it to a peaceful, for her, which was very sweet.
And of course, Constantine's like, I better not fucking see you again.
And Dream's like, sorry, man, when you go to sleep, shit's coming.
And now we're in hell.
We are, I really want to talk about hell, and I also really want to talk about serial convention. Those are my two favorite things that we haven't touched on yet. But we are at 1:20, and I don't know when Cecilia has to...
I've got 20 more minutes that you can monopolize my time.
Okay, I don't know... Yeah, we can either try and knock out all the rest of the Sandman in 20 minutes, or we can plan a part 2 of this. Whichever way you want to try and do it.
We can get through the end of the Battle of Hell in 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then after that can be a part 2 to
that is an impressive promise you've made. Let's see if we can do it.
That episode ends with the battle between Morpheus and Lucifer.
I know. I just don't know.
With the helm.
Yeah.
That last part is going to be... Getting the jewel back is the most important part we're going to talk about. Because that will be the full breakdown of the diner scene. Yeah. That'll be the full breakdown of...
And then all of the stuff with Unity. And...
Yes.
Yeah. Because ironically, the hell comes before the diner. Although we've talked way more about the diner than we have about hell.
It's so exciting because we've been waiting for so long, and over the last couple of years, you got us all into this. So you pulled us into this rabbit hole, and we all fell madly in love with Sandman. And it's so hard not to want to talk in depth about stuff that is just appeasing to our nerdism.
So interconnected too. Like you can't really. Like, they're establishing things, but if you really want to take in context Morpheus seeing his lover in hell, you have to talk about the fact that he put her there.
Yeah.
Like, it is... All of this stuff is so together that it is hard to just talk about this one part of it.
Well, another thing Neil Gaiman's great at is because you have characters that seem like one-offs. Like in the first issue, like, oh, here's a little story of 8 different people that had the sleeping sickness. Yeah. And then one of them ends up being an extremely important... Well, like 2 of them end up being extremely important characters. And you're like, oh, those 8 little one-offs... You were hiding 2 very important characters in those that you bring out later. And Neil Gaiman said in interviews that like a lot of this was planned from day one, but then a lot of things just serendipitously came together.
I loved the way that he let them execute hell in the show. Because in the comics, it's a little bit more, it looks more like a desert. It looks like you're hanging out in Nevada.
Yeah.
It looks a bit more like Nevada. It looks a lot like that.
Yeah.
And in this version, it was more gruesome and very dreary, a little bit gray. There were bright spots, but that was because that was hellfire.
Yeah.
And I love the line that Matthew says is like, what? They make you carry your own fire into hell? What the hell is this? I was like, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Lot of things pulled straight from Dante's Inferno as well. Like the people that were trees. That's right out of.
It's like, do you believe in heaven or hell, Matthew? It was like, dude, 5 seconds ago, like 15 seconds ago, I didn't know I was going to be dead.
Yeah, like
I don't know what anymore. Now I'm a raven.
Yeah. Matthew, I fucking love Matthew so much.
Yeah, that was another great. I mean, again, very few complaints about the cast.
I still think Patton Oswalt should have been cast as Penguin. I think he should have been cast as Penguin. Just saying, not Colin Farrell.
He was in College Humor. I mean, do you?
No. I mean, real, because he's an actual nerd who deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, he does.
Stop rewarding the people who don't know shit about the source material.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like Henry.
Now who's gatekeeping?
No, I'm talking about actors.
I'm kidding. Yes, you are correct.
Like Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumbersome, Patchsome, but whatever his name is.
You leave him alone. We will fight.
Benedict Cumbersome? Cumberdome? Anyways, Doctor Strange, he actually did his research for both the Sherlock material and Doctor Strange. Like, stacks of comics he actually read.
Yeah.
Henry Cavill, Love that man. He is a fucking nerd. He built his own gaming PC.
Doesn't he color his own little characters?
Yes, he paints miniatures.
It's very cute.
He has his own little tabletop game. He plays D&D. He actually is a fucking nerd.
Yeah.
Give him his jobs because he does the research. He
Yeah.
puts in the effort.
Yeah.
Stop letting these fuckers like, Pete Davidson or, Mark Wahlberg or any of these other big names play characters they have no connection to. Like, they really don't care. It's just a paycheck to them.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Although there are actors
that's
that
the only
gatekeeping
I'm ever going to fucking do about, superhero roles in movies or TV shows is, like, I feel like the people who take these roles should have a little bit of respect.
I don't mind gatekeeping amongst fucking Hollywood millionaires. I don't give a shit. Like,
Facts.
Yeah. You can kick out Brad Pitt at any club in the world and kick him out of any role in the world, and I will lose zero sleep over it.
Now, one thing about the gateway to hell, I was a little disappointed that it wasn't as illustrious as the design that we got here.
I'm annoyed it wasn't a highway.
I did like the fact that when he rang the gong, though...
Again, this is not admissible in a court of law. If you hear the sounds of screaming, it's sound effects. Sound effects.
Highway to hell.
I was just going to glance over. I wasn't going to feed into it.
It was a high... Yeah,
you had to acknowledge it.
No, but
I do love that when he hit the gong. When he hit the gong, all the fucking creatures like cringing from the loud gongs. I love that. I also love the fact that, we did see almost a Dante's Inferno-esque style of hell, where, A
lot of Dante, a lot of Milton, and Gaiman's portrayal of hell,
and
both in the comic
very
and the
much
show.
like the giant cliff sides look like Paradise Lost, stuff like that. But when they got to the forest of, like, the living
forest
damned,
of living trees,
I was like, that is straight Dante's
right out of literature,
Inferno.
Yeah.
And I love that book, so that
you
made me
never have
happy.
to worry about Neil Gaiman not acknowledging everything that was ever written. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, this is from this, and this is from that, and this is from this. I mean, he loves the literary aspect of his writings.
I actually forgot about this. I forgot that it wasn't Gobblehead that was leading it. It was Etrigan.
Yeah, another DC mainstay who he might have wanted to avoid.
Okay, yeah. And of course, the infamous scene where Etrigan is supposed to be leading him up the cliffside, and you see his ex-lover for the first time. That's when we first, in the comics, see Dream transform into a different race.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love the subtleness of doing it in the show. It was a quick shot. They show the young actor that's playing the African prince version of Dream.
Yep.
And it cuts back to regular Morpheus, the tall, emo, skinny white boy.
Yeah. Talking to Matthew.
Yeah.
So when he's talking to Matthew, he looks this way.
Yep.
When he's talking to her, he looks this way. I also think it's neat that he's...
The conversation was directly from the comic, too.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I wish almost... that this was my first time experiencing it, because I imagine people who are watching the show for the first time expected him to let her out. Because he's like, I still love you. Do you still love me? Yes.
But I'm not.
But I do not forgive you. Yeah. Like, I bet for people that did not know, that
after this bitch just spent 100 years in a ball,
it hit my sister.
No, it was longer than that. It was like 1,000 years, because it was like well before he was captured.
It hit my sister like a ton of bricks.
No, that's what I'm saying.
She did not see that coming.
This bitch, Morpheus.
Oh, you're talking about Morpheus.
Morpheus is this bitch.
Sorry,
Morpheus
that was sexist of me to assume that you were talking about the woman that was in the cage.
No, Morpheus is the bitch. Mm-hmm. This bitch just spent 100 years in a ball. Can't understand the pure frustration of not being in control of where you are and what you get to do. Mm-hmm. And this bitch still cannot get over himself.
I hadn't forgiven her yet.
He's the one that needs to be forgiven.
Well, then forgive him already. Damn.
I mean, we all know Dream eventually gets his comeuppance, and we all love to see it and hate it at the same time.
And he does. He frees her eventually. He's.
But not without coercion and bullying.
Well, no. What I was going to say is, it's again, this redemption arc is him trying to fix all of his mistakes before he checks out, and he meets with varying amounts of success, which I think is Neil Gaiman saying, "Hey, you can't go back and fix all this shit. Some mistakes you make will follow you forever because you were shitty." You're gonna carry that weight for the rest of your days, however long or short they be. You can go back and let her out, but that doesn't forgive or excuse the 100 years you kept her there.
And the irony that he gives humans so much shit about their egos and their pride and all that, and he is the biggest executor of
game
pride
recognized
and
game.
ego.
Yeah, game recognized game.
Like, you were so prideful that you felt slighted by your ex, which what she did to him was really nothing in hindsight.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that bad. Like, but because I'm so petty and my pride is hurt, I'm just going to trap you here for 1,000 years in hell. Because, fuck it. You're not dead, but you're alive.
Yeah. I didn't kill you.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Yeah. But, alright, so we get the great reveal of Lucifer in the Netflix show. Mm-hmm. And when I saw it, I was like, God damn, this is exactly panel for panel again.
Yeah. And Lucifer's, what's her face? Old melty face.
Kaba?
Yeah. Lucifer's number 2. Who's also in the show, Lucifer.
Yeah, I'm forgetting her name now. Why am I forgetting
Is
her
it
name?
Kava?
No.
Mesme.
I'm thinking of the other chick. The one with the scarred face that in the comic, it was like almost her whole face was gone.
Yeah, Mesme.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anyway, yeah, you get to see those two, and they are comic, very close to the comic.
I loved how Gwendolyn Christie turned around and spinning image of how Lucifer just whips around. It's like, oh, hello, Dream.
Yeah.
See, you're finally free.
Yeah.
And of course, all white, suit looks fucking amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. Super polite, but with a couple of barbs thrown in because that's how good folk do.
And then I loved when they showed Azrael and the way that it looked on the TV show versus the comic books. How it was just a bunch of fucking like eyes and mouths in the sky out of nowhere, like just ripped open a hole in the universe.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it looked like a honeycomb or whatever.
Well, when Azrael shows up again in volume 2 or 3, it looks more like the way it looks in the show. So they just picked a later image and retconned it. Because, again, you have different artists later on, and so it looks different. But, yeah, they picked a later image, and I liked it. I was very pleased.
This was cool, too. The shot from the balcony of hell versus just the middle of the pit.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool because it reminded me very much of Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings when So when Saruman is fucking just talking to all the newly created Uruk-hai to go kill the elves and the man and eat their flesh.
And the camera pans out and you just see the waves and waves.
It reminded me so much of that exact same shot. Yeah. And I thought that was so cool. It's like, that's a little nod to Peter Jackson, Tolkien.
A British person that likes Tolkien. Who would have thought?
Also, I did think that the character design for, what they did with the guy in the show versus the actual comic book, where he's got the, like, punk rock style, tentacles out of his hair, and then he didn't have the cool glasses. I was a little upset that he didn't have the
glasses.
Retro, like, Bret Hart.
They spent all their glasses budget on the Corinthian. They didn't have any left. They didn't have any left for the
those
demon.
are prescription. Those are not cheap, Yeah. Like,
and you had to have more than one pair.
What kind of lens thickness you got to have for teeth eyeball?
To hide teeth eyeballs. Yeah. That was their whole glasses budget.
All right. Now, the biggest difference, though, is the actual fight that happened between Dream and the demon turned into Dream and Lucifer.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, if you're going to cast Gwendolyn Christie, you're not going to waste her as a background character.
Also, I felt like it raised the stakes.
It did. It did indeed.
So I think that was a good move, because Dream being able to outwit a demon is not as impressive as being able to outwit Lucifer. And it gives Lucifer more motivation to dislike Dream.
How pissed was Lucifer when Hope was the final tool to win?
Yeah.
I am Hope. Yeah. Never ending. And Lucifer had no comeback for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give him his fucking helmet back. Get out of my house.
Yeah.
Leave.
Yeah.
I'll destroy you at different day.
It wasn't leave, though. It was like, you think you've won. Yeah, and then he gives his famous line from the comic and things like, hell is useless if they can't dream of heaven. Like, that line is a line. We talk about panels we were waiting for. That line is one I've waited for 30 years to see it said in a live action scenario. It's like, what the hell if you can't dream of heaven? Oh.
This is exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
You say I have no power. Perhaps you speak truly. But you say that dreams have no power here. Tell me, Lucifer Morningstar. Ask yourselves, all of you, what power would hell have if those here in prison were not able to dream of heaven?
And then he just walks, and it's the parting of the sea, and the demons all move to the left and right. He goes, and that is when Lucifer... if he had just won the contest, I think Lucifer would have been a little unhappy. But that with this... of him.
It's a disrespect.
It's a disrespect. You come into my house, you disrespect me. Yeah.
And I do say the only thing that was a little disappointing when he was walking out, his cloak didn't have the flames on it.
Didn't have the flames.
It's self-service. It's fan service.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had, every time you open his cloak, you would see space and stars and look like the void.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a little 3D effect they could have done. Or, like, every time his cloak dragged across him, it was flames, like in the comic.
I feel like here they're going to save it for big moments. Because I think there will be moments where the cape is flame and where he opens it up and the whole cosmos is inside. But, yeah, they kind of... And
of course, in the comic, Lucifer is plotting and saying, one day, brothers, one day I shall destroy him.
Yep.
In the Netflix show, Lucifer promises that war is coming and you will pick a side.
Yeah. Which is interesting because if it goes the way of the comic, when Lucifer is planning revenge in Volume 1, you can't imagine the form that it will take. And it's very surprising. And I wonder how people watching the show will take it. Because they're expecting a war. And they're going to get something totally different. And I wonder if that, for people that don't know the comic, if that will reflect, if people will be upset with that. Because The Sandman is not a comic based on action scenes.
No.
Yeah.
It's mostly philosophical debates and mysteries.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a house of secrets and a house of mysteries.
Yes.
It is not a house of conflict. It's all the conflict's happening up here.
Yeah, there's conflict, but the way out isn't through swords.
Their battles are chess moves.
Yeah.
Their battles are chess moves.
Yes.
And for a comic, you expect Umbrella Academy fight scenes. You expect Sweet Tooth fight scenes. You expect something different than what is delivered.
I think that's one of the best things about Sandman, though.
Yeah, it is.
I'm
curious to see if it will appeal to all audiences. So far, season 1, it's number 1 on Netflix. People have been watching it. Like
and
the
over
reviews,
80 countries countries are watching Sandman.
Yeah.
So to anyone that says that it's not a hit, that it's not being watched, that it's not a good show,
it's full of themselves.
You tell the other 79 countries that you don't live in that they're watching the wrong thing.
That's a bit of Sandman arrogance.
Subscription.
Yeah, a bit of Sandman arrogance.
Because, it's one of those things where people are like, well, I've been waiting forever. I was a fan of it when I was a teenager. When I was a kid, I was reading it back when it was coming out in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
It's not like what I thought it was. You know why? Because it's been 30 years. Times have changed. Technology has changed.
Gaiman has changed.
Yes. His perspective, he's like, yeah, some of my writing is a little...
He's grown. He's matured.
He has been honest. He's like, some of my writing is very out of date. Characters are very oblique now. Like, I need to change them. They don't stand up to the test of time because I didn't write them that way.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah.
And
I had a fucking curfew. I had to fucking, I had to get these out one a month.
Well, and it's just...
He was also a party kid. He was never shy about how he liked to party in London. He was, he was never shy about, like, the reason why Sandman looks like me is because I felt like I was the Sandman. You know?
I always thought the Sandman looked like him, so that doesn't
Struggling
surprise me.
artist.
Yeah. But I don't know, you grow as a person, hopefully.
Yeah, in a perfect world.
Yeah, and the fact that he would change his characters to reflect his growth, too.
And I think a lot of that comes to meeting people like Terry Pratchett. Him getting to meet other writers like that, and then becoming good friends and losing that friendship, and then holding on to those lessons, I think that really changed him. Because why else would he agree to do Bad Omens after he's like...
Good Omens.
Good Omens. Bad Omens. Bad Omens is a band. Bad Omens is a band.
Bad Omens is 2016 to 2022.
But no, Good Omens... Why would he agree to do Good Omens? And then, once it was done to fruition completed, why would he agree to a second season if he didn't feel like he could...
There is actually source material for a second season because they were kind of working on another book before.
It was never completed.
It was never completed, but there is at least, like, he's not pulling it out of his ass.
Yeah.
So I do have hope that it'll be as good as the first season.
I trust Neil Gaiman to not just do a money grab.
And I think
don't fucking let me down, Neil.
I think if he stays
we know you're listening.
as vice grip on the throat of the Sandman TV series with Netflix as he has been this first season, as long as he holds that vice grip on Sandman... like he's done for the past 30 plus years, I think we're going to keep getting good seasons. Yeah. And this is just us covering the first 4 episodes. Think about that.
Yeah.
What we just talked about was only the first 4 episodes, and we ended it with him beating Lucifer in a battle, And how that was more epic than the actual comic of just beating some random fucking demon.
Yeah, and it wasn't a battle. It was a battle of imagination. It was just...
It's a battle of wits.
It was a battle of storytelling.
Yes.
Which, of course, yeah. Neil Gaiman will never lose a battle of storytelling.
And the irony... I might be mixing it up in my head, but I do remember there was a subtle part when I was taking notes that Lucifer had mentioned something about, Dream being free and, what it was like to be an prisoner. And Dream makes a subtle whip about always the victim.
Yeah.
Makes a very subtle quip to Lucifer about always playing the victim.
Yeah.
And then, proceeds to rub in his
face about... Doesn't Dream do that too, though?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of... Oh, yeah. Well, again, it's easiest to pick out the flaws in other people
exactly.
that you
when
have
you
yourself.
Also, yeah. And it was just so funny. It was like, that's the irony, isn't it? Like, Lucifer is playing, sympathy for the devil all the time.
Yeah.
And Dream's like, well, at least I don't have to worry about a dad that doesn't love me.
Yeah.
In the most polite way, that's what he said. That's basically what he said.
Which, again, it was a battle of politeness, which I also, big fan.
The battle of passive-aggressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that was a good way to end it, because also, I love how, at the very end of all that, Matthew's like, what would happen if you would have died? Like, what would have happened to me? Well, you would have been stuck here. He's like, I kept you here with me because you're my connection to the dreaming.
But he didn't. He told him to get his ass out.
He told Matthew to leave.
Matthew stayed out of loyalty, which is the beginning of Dream seeing him as more of than a raven.
But you like how Dream switched on him. He's like, oh, that's why he's like, oh, no, I won't go. I won't leave you. And then at the last minute, Dream's like, oh, you think I let you stay? No, you think I let you disobey me? No, I let you stay because you were my connection. You gave me more power. Yeah. He tried to make it seem like he didn't want him to stay.
Yeah.
He tried to play it off like, oh, we're not buddies now.
I think he would have let him go if he had, but since he was there, might as well use that extra power I got.
Well, isn't Matthew also was like, hey, you can't give up now. Like, Matthew was
Dreams don't fucking die!
Yeah, Matthew was an active encouragement.
Argue that he wouldn't have won without Matthew being there. Yeah. All right, well,
until he said that, there would have been no line about hope. And that was the one thing that this episode ended on, was the hope.
Yes, and that's the one thing we're going to end up on, hope. In the hope that Gorship will return and we'll do a part 2 and try and finish the rest of the Sandman. For Cecilia Rose, this is Reno Dino Valentino signing off for Comic Dissection. We will see you next time, whenever that is. You'll fucking be here. What choice do you have?
Adios.
Adios, amigos.
Bye-bye.